morning, Munchkins. Today is Thursday, April 9th. Thursday, if you will. And I got a new set of ears, although they're kind of crooked. It's hard to straighten things in a camera, whatever. So yeah, we're almost up to spring break. So, today's, like, thing for school or whatever is, like, wear a hat and take a picture. But I figure I'm already wearing ears, so it counts, right? It counts. Yeah, I don't really have anything new. Nothing too new is going on. Yeah, so let's just go ahead and get rolling. Okay. So, okay. So we're, yesterday we read, chapters, 7 and 8. Oh, no, that's a lie. That's what we're reading today. Yesterday we read 5 and 6. And Jack and Annie went surfing. So I want you to think and do a quick summary, pause the video and do a quick summary of what happened yesterday when Jack and Annie went fishing. Like, what actually occurred when they were on their surfing trip, not fishing. What am I doing today? Woo! My brain is full of holes. Being away from you all truly is remarkable. By the way, it's almost Easter, which means Easter candy is almost gone. And I've only eaten 1 bag of jelly beans so far, so. And then dropped it on my lap. And anyways. Okay. So, what happened when they went surfing? Kind of what we would usually expect, right? Annie is fully willing to go all out, no fear. Jack, however, is a little bit unsure. And when he tries to stand up on the surfboard, he falls over and he ends up getting pretty hurt. So, he kind of gets embarrassed. And what it really makes me think of is, you know, sometimes when we're hurt, we feel embarrassed and it causes us to kind of lash out at people. And so Jack kind of did that. He was upset that he'd fallen over. He didn't feel like Annie, Boca, and Kama were being nice to him. And he kind of lashed out at them. And he was sort of like, you know, I don't want to hang out with you and blah, 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 and made fun of Boca and Kama for not being able to read. Which, by the way, they can't read because remember, in old Hawaii, they didn't have a written language. They told everything through hula, is how they transmitted stories. So anyway, Jack's sitting on the beach while the other 3 go out to try and surf again. And as he's sitting there, the ground shakes. And he's like, well, that's weird. It feels like an earthquake. And nobody else really reacted to it. But when he looks it up in the book, he discovers that it could have led potentially to a tsunami. So, that was kind of where we had left off. Let's pull up our vocabulary and go over that, and then we'll get started on our book. Okay. First word is breakers. I say, you say. Breakers are those heavy waves that come up onto shore and kind of turn white when they hit the sand. The next word was chores, which hopefully you guys are doing a lot of to help out your parents. Jobs that you have to do around the house, like cleaning or, you know, cooking or whatever. The next one is fantasy. A fantasy is anything that's impossible or improbable to do. It's just not possible. Meadow. Meadow is basically like a flat ground that's covered in grass. Not a whole lot of trees. Generally isn't very hilly. Kind of similar to a prairie. Porch. A porch is something that's usually at the front of a building, and it is like a little outside room that has a roof but no walls to it. It might have like screens, but no real walls. Surfboard. You know what a surfboard is. And then tsunami. And a tsunami is basically a really large wave that's caused by an earthquake. Typically the earthquake happens, you know, under the water or even can happen on land. And we read yesterday, Jack read that when a tsunami happens, a lot of times you can tell it's about to happen because, of course, there's the earthquake. But if you don't feel the earthquake, the water that's up near, so here's the shore, the water sort of will pull back from the shore like this and then suddenly rush in a big wave. So that's where we had left off yesterday. Uh-oh. Almost knocked my dude over. Okay. And we were on Chapter 7, Ride for Your Lives. Jack had to find out more about tsunamis quickly. He read as fast as he could. By the way, it's page 51 if you're keeping up. A tsunami can strike a few hours or a few minutes after an earthquake. It all depends on the strength of the earthquake and where it took place. After an earthquake, it is safest for islanders to seek higher ground. We have to get to higher ground now, thought Jack, dropping the book. He ran down to the edge of the ocean. Boca, Kama, and Annie were still paddling out beyond the waves. Jack forgot all about their fight. "Hey, you guys!" he yelled. They didn't hear him. Jack went into the shallow water. "Hey, you guys!" he yelled. "Come back!" They still didn't hear him. Jack ran to his surfboard, grabbed it, and ran into the ocean. He fought the breaking waves. Once he was past them, he threw himself on his board and paddled wildly. The wave swells grew as he paddled. He could hardly see Annie, Boca, or Kama over them. Jack paddled faster and faster, trying to reach them. "Hey!" he yelled. "Hey!" Boca looked back at him. He gave Jack a friendly wave, then turned away again. "I have to get them to come to me," Jack thought frantically. "Help! Help!" he yelled at the top of his lungs. The three kids jerked around. They paddled quickly towards Jack with worried faces. "What's wrong?" Annie cried when they got closer. "Are you in trouble?" "We all are," said Jack. "A tsunami might be coming. There was an earthquake when I was on the beach." "We better ride in fast," said Boca. "Stay in your belly," said Kama. "It's safer." "Here comes a wave!" cried Boca. They all started paddling. The swell of the wave picked them up. They were all swept forward. Jack gripped the sides of his board as he zoomed along with the others. Suddenly, he dropped down as the wave curled under. It felt like a roller coaster, but he stayed on his board as the wave carried him to shore. Jack rolled off into shallow water. He snatched up his board and ran onto the sand. Boca and Kama were waiting. "Good riding, Jack," said Boca. "Where's Annie?" said Jack. Jack pointed. Annie was in the shallow water pulling her board in. As they watched, something very weird began to happen. The water around Annie started to pull away. Chapter 8. The Big Wave. "Run, Annie!" Jack screamed. The water drew away from the beach, and a loud hissing sound came from the sand. Suddenly, fish were flopping on the bare sand. Annie threw down her board and ran. She grabbed Jack's hand as she ran by him. Jack grabbed Boca, and Boca grabbed Kama, and they all ran together, pulling each other along as they raced to the cliff. Boca and Kama ran up the path. Jack and Annie grabbed their shoes and Jack's pack. Then they scrambled up the path, too. At the top of the cliff, everyone looked back. Jack couldn't believe his eyes. A wave was rising like a dark mountain of water. It came surging towards the shore, growing taller. And that's them on the top. By the way, this is the top of a cliff, and there's Jack, Annie, Boca, and Kama, and that's how big the wave is. So you can see it's enormous. "Wow," whispered Annie. "Get back!" shouted Boca. The four of them bolted back from the edge of the rocky slope. The mountain of water crashed against the cliff. Water sprayed over the top of the rocks and rained down on them. When the water rolled back over the cliff, they all hurried to the edge to see what had happened. The rocky cliff path was gone. The gigantic wave was moving back out to sea, taking sand, rocks, seaweed, seashells, and surfboards with it. "Scary," breathed Annie. "Yeah," said Jack. "We just made it." "Boca! Kama!" voices yelled. They turned around. Jack saw Boca and Kama's parents racing across the meadow toward them. Other villagers followed. The two Hawaiian kids ran to their parents' arms. Soon Jack and Annie were surrounded by villagers. Everyone was laughing and crying and hugging each other. Jack hugged Annie. He hugged Kama and Boca and their parents, and lots of other people he didn't even know. Chapter 9. Telling the Story. And that's where we're going to stop for today. So tomorrow we will finish up with our last two chapters of our Magic Treehouse book, and yeah, then we'll kind of go from there. So I'm going to pause our video, and we will do our word problem of the day, and then it'll be the end. By the way, we have 2 more chapters left. Have you figured out what the ship is yet that they're supposed to build? Think. Okay, Thursday. Aaron has 85 books in his room. 35 are fiction, 30 are nonfiction, and the rest are poetry. How many poetry books does Aaron have? So he has 85 books total in his, don't fall over, in his room. 30 are fiction, 35 are fiction, 30 are nonfiction, and the rest are poetry. How many poetry books does Aaron have? So this is going to ask us to actually do, this is what we call a 2-step problem, because it's giving us 3 numbers and we actually have to do more than one thing. So the 85 gives us our total number, I'll tell you that much. So 85 is our total. So if we're doing a math problem to add up all the books, 85 would be here at the end. Then it tells us that he added 35 plus 30 plus some unknown number of poetry. So how would you solve this problem? Okay, put your answer in the comments below, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Tulips.